Okay, welcome to this Sunday night show for Inside the Lines. This is where we're going over the look-ahead lines. This is probably the best value show you can find of the week. We'll let you know where we think these lines are going. Steven's broken down what we can. We still have to finish out the 4 o'clock games, but we certainly think we know where these lines are going to move and what the look-ahead has value on. So, Steven, let's get started. Giants at the Bills. Bills laying 12. This was actually just taken off the books because we don't know what's going on with Daniel Jones. But in your head, and what could be the scenarios that you see playing out here?
Yeah, the scenarios I see is Daniel Jones, if he's ruled out, it'll be interesting if the line reposts that basically the same spread, indicating that the bettors and the sports books see Tyrod Taylor is just as good as Daniel Jones. And you got to question, why did the team re-sign him for $42 million a year if that's the case? But regardless, the Matt Milano injury on Buffalo, he looks like his season's over. He's one of a handful of inside linebackers that really have an impact on the line. Mm-hmm. So Buffalo had a slow offensive start in London, but I think that can be attributed to the travel and all that. Right. So I see the Bills having no problem putting up well over 30 points. So the best line might be the team total if the line's 29 under 30. Okay. But overall, I see the over-under, which before today's games actually bumped down to 47. If you can get 47, I see the over still being a good play because, again, Daniel Jones may be out, but maybe Saquon's back. Milano's out. Buffalo could be without basically all of their best non-edge rushers.
Yeah.
So it could bode well for the Giants' ability to at least run the ball and put up points enough to get over 47.
Okay, so we'll keep our eye out on the team totals there when that reopens. Let's go to the Colts at the Jags. Jags laying 5.5 after a big win over the Bills. Do you think this is inflated? What's the whole Jonathan Taylor situation? Has he really impacted the line necessarily?
So, yeah, this was the early – it's hard to – when we define look ahead, we're right now using the line that was posted before the game start. Right. So the minus 5.5 was actually bet down to 4.5 when Jonathan Taylor signed his extension. But then today, of course, Zach Moss stole the show, and he's the one with the 150 whatever plus yards. And Taylor didn't really do much. Then, of course, you have Anthony Richardson out probably. He's missed one game and he's left due to injury in 3 others. By my count, that's pretty much every game
really
he's played. So I think the public and the bettors are in love with Minshew enough that even if Richardson is ruled out, that you won't see some massive fade of the Colts. Mm-hmm. The storyline, the narratives that might start creeping in is how bad Indianapolis has played at Jacksonville in key situations over the years. But then that'll be countered by, well, it's a whole new coach, whole new system, new quarterbacks, and Minshew will be will have his revenge opportunity against his former team.
Right.
If you get minus 4.5, if it reopens at that level because there's confidence in Minshew, and there's a belief that Jonathan Taylor with Zach Moss can run the ball well, I would take that because I do think the Jags are the play here. But I think that there will be chances if you miss 4.5, it goes to 5.5. That later in the week will swing back as the steam goes back and forth between Minshew, and there'll be a lot of talk that the Richardsons look good passing. That Minshew might be the better quarterback at this time and operating the offense and all those narratives. So I don't think you'll lose the opportunity if you miss the act now.
Right.
And you might be better off waiting just to see how it goes back. Right. If you're really smart, then maybe you can shop both sides and arbitrage the thing.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll look out for that 4.5 there. Talking about your Ravens, a little too close, too soon, but
I'm a professional. It's not my Ravens. I mean, I can separate church and state. I don't live my fandom.
So professional. Yes. But you look at
I did remove the jersey.
There you go.
And side note, the TV setup I have in here, I'm gonna have to ask them to put those banner ads back on the TVs.
Anyway. The superstition coming from Steven's office is a little out there.
This is the game in some teams like the Jets or the Cowboys. The fan bases get so excited when their team's playing well that they end up taking their own team against the spread and moving the line in their favor. This is a case where I think both fan bases are so disappointed in their teams that no one in Baltimore will be betting Baltimore, and no one in Tennessee will be betting Tennessee because they both flopped and disappointed their fans in just massive ways. And Baltimore, and the narratives that'll come around, Baltimore has not done well in London. The worst games. And then Tennessee and Baltimore, they've had an interesting history a few years ago in the playoffs. So again, I don't think this line's going to move much, if at all, based on that. And there's no real value there was a little tick to -4, but again, this is another shop around opportunity.
Right.
I think Baltimore should be the side because I do think that they have advantages across the board. Tennessee did not defend the run well again today, and that was their strength. That was the calling card. And Tennessee did not run the ball well today, and that was that's a calling card. So that's a bad sign.
Right. And where does the model see this game? Do we have value on?
We have value on Baltimore because the first half they had a 250 to 89 yardage advantage.
Right.
Pittsburgh they left 17 points on the field today.
Right. So let's look at this look-ahead line. So again, this is before the 1 o'clock games happen. We have Washington at the Falcons. At line originally 1.5. You see this as a sense of urgency, probably, if you like Atlanta here.
Yeah, because Atlanta and Ritter do look infinitely better at home, and they had a really impressive comeback win. Ritter actually passed for more yards than Stroud, and the model has a lot of value on Atlanta and the over because Washington, despite the money they spend and the high draft picks on the defensive line, their coordinator, Jack Del Rio, is just too old school.
Right.
And too predictable. So they've been allowing well over 30 points. You saw what they did against Chicago. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't do anything against Fields. And so I think that the money will come in Atlanta to move this to -3.
Right.
That said, Washington has more talent. If Washington's defense plays to its talent, don't be surprised, but I would take it. If you like Atlanta, take it. If you can get it at -1.5, take it.
Right. We'll move to a tough game. The Saints laying 1 at Houston. It's like Stroud continues to play so well, not necessarily winning, but so it's like, how do you adjust a line to a quarterback playing so well but losing games?
Yeah, and the New Orleans demolished New England, but how much will the narrative be? Mac Jones is that bad, early and I'm a little down on New Orleans because Rashid Shaheed. The line went from 27.5 to 28.5, and then he had 28 yards. So that I'm waiting and hoping and praying for a stat correction to come across the board.
I think I hit it. I hit it on Sportsline. I think I had it at 27.5.
Yeah, that was the original thing. And then I put the pick in. Then like 3 hours later, I'm doing the show, and for integrity and honesty's purposes, I said, I can't say 27.5 now that it's not being on the board.
I made up for us on Sportsline,
which is again, I'm kind of glad about this because it's a proof of the value of our show.
Right.
That every half point counts and every minute counts, and when you do it counts.
Right.
So in this case, I think that the line's actually going to kind of hold.
Okay.
I do think that if you're a Houston backer, you can probably get pretty good plus money, because I think the line will move to New Orleans because the Saints defense was did look so good, and the offense was a little more was passing more effectively downfield. Shaheed had a 25-yard reception.
Right.
His other one it was 3 instead of 4.
Right. So we're looking at halftime right now for the Bengals games. They're hosting the Seahawks next week, and now it's 17-14 at the half. They're leading the Cardinals. Right now they're 2.5-point favorites. How do you see this playing out?
So Pete Carroll, unlike the Andy Reid narrative is always when he comes off a bye, he's dozen 20 something and whatever and 1 or whatever. He's always awesome. But Pete Carroll is not one of those coaches. I think he's something like 4-6 coming off a bye week. So that gambling narrative won't impact the line. Joe Burrow got off to a really hot start, hit his first 10 passes, scored a touchdown. They got another, and the touchdown they just got before the half was actually a pick 6 near the goal line. I think that if Cincinnati wins the second half, outscores Arizona in the second half and wins the game there, obviously, and Joe Burrow finishes with that impressive stat line, that the line will go to 3. So I would act now if you get 2.5 on Cincinnati.
Okay.
But if Arizona's offense can put up another 14 points in the second half, then I think it'll hold because Seattle's played so well on the road this year in their 2 road games. And there will be questions about the Bengals defense.
Okay. So let's look at Carolina at Miami. The line's 10.5, over under 46.
Yeah.
You would think this is probably a pretty short line. This will end up moving.
Yeah, that's not going to last. I think it'll reopen at -13 Miami and a 49.5.
Wow.
Because Carolina's defense got to play Detroit on the road, but Detroit was out without Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you wouldn't have known the difference. The Detroit, so Carolina, their defense is not going to be able to stop Chin. I don't even know how to pronounce it at this point.
Yeah, same, but I had his prop.
He had his prop at 49.5 or even 50.5, and he got past that in 3 carries. So that was pretty easy.
Right.
Yeah, Miami should be able to put up over 30 by themselves. In Carolina, it was garbage time, but they did end up scoring, at the end. And maybe that gives them, and Miami's defense isn't scaring anyone either.
Right.
So I like the over on this one. I don't think you'll get it anywhere close to the 46. It was on the look-ahead line. Okay.
Where would you recommend spread and over under? Where would you say it's not worth taking anymore?
Not worth at 13 and 40 and 50.
Okay. Good to know.
Our model has -13 and 50, and that doesn't factor in today's stats yet. So I would think that there's a good chance the model goes to 13.5, 14, and 51.
Okay. Good to know. All right, we'll move to the lines laying 3 in Tampa Bay, over under 45.5. Lines look great again today. Do you think this line's going to reopen?
No, this is going to be a tough one. I think this is going to be one that's going to waffle around back and forth.
Okay, so not a sense of urgency act now type of thing.
No, because Detroit, Tampa Bay's on a bye, and there's just people aren't sure if Tampa Bay's good or not, right? They still don't know if they should buy into Baker.
Right.
And, and there's obviously no film this week to make you decide otherwise. Detroit did look awesome, and their defense was flying around. But Detroit historically has not scored nearly as well on the road.
Right.
And Tampa's defense is playing really well, and they're fresh. So I don't think there's going to be any urgency to act anytime soon. And at 3, I would say if it gets to 3.5 Detroit, then Tampa Bay better should probably wait to see if they can get a half a point off that key number.
Okay.
And and if you're totally onto Detroit, then you probably want you'll hope you can get 2.5.
Yeah.
Just start spreading the word about how good Baker is. Start trying to influence people. Just
right. Get that line.
Reverse psychology.
Yeah. Let's move quick. We'll just mention this game briefly because it's interesting. The Raiders on the bye. Patriots at the Raiders next week. Raiders favored 1.5, over under 42.5. Is there value on acting on this early?
I think so. I mean, Vegas doesn't play until tomorrow. But the Patriots it was such a bad game. The interesting for me is, I think if Mac Jones is still the starter, it will go to -3 for Vegas, assuming that Vegas is not horrific.
So fascinating.
Monday. But Bailey Zappi is in there. I'm actually wondering if it'll hold at -1.5, because we saw last year that Zappi was much better in the 2 starts that he had. And,
100%.
And so, that'll be I didn't really tune in to because I was absorbed by the Ravens debacle. So I didn't see if Zappi managed to come in and do anything. But they obviously didn't score any points. Let me just do a quick check if he did anything. 3 for 9 for 22 yards. So he wasn't exactly lighting up either. But that'll be the interesting thing, if Zappi, it's sort of like the Daniel Jones things. If it's still -1.5, and Zappi's not any worse on the line than Mac Jones, and that's all you need to know if you're a Patriots
or Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky it did make that much of a difference, I guess.
Yeah, but now that's Pickett has 2 game-winning 4th quarter drives against the Ravens in his career.
Yeah,
But the good thing is for Ravens fans, if you think Matt Canada is not a good OC, and if you don't think Kenny Pickett's ever going to be a top 10 quarterback, then the Ravens have single-handedly made the Steelers think that we should stick with Canada and Pickett for 3 or 4 more years. So it's kind of like a chess move. We're playing the long game. Right. Let's make sure that they don't go get Michael Penix or some other good quality. Like, let's
draft a quarterback
about that duo, and let's let them feel good about giving the ball to Najee Harris, 15 times. Let's
enough to keep him there.
Keep that crew in place, and then we'll be the one on top at the end.
Right. So to wrap up the things we talked about, plays that we think are worth acting now on. If you like the Jags, take the 4.5 if you can find it now before that reopens. Same with the Falcons after their game against Houston, they'll probably open up bigger. So if you can get 1.5, Bengals -2.5 if you like them. Do you want to speak to this a little bit, Steven?
Just like, yeah, we got to see how the Bengals defense looks in the second
Right.
half. If they win the half, even if it's a low scoring half, then they'll move to 3, I think.
Right. And if you can get Miami anything under 13, if you can get that over under anything under 49, you're probably in good shape there. Again, we'll go over the games that we weren't able to go over to today, tomorrow, in the Monday 1 o'clock show. And then we'll also look at some of the reopened lines and see if Vegas agreed with us and see if we have value on some spots that they didn't really see it in. So stick around for that. This is definitely an important show, but tomorrow just as important to get the early lines as they come back out. So, with that said, that's all we have for right now. Tune in Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. We have plenty of stuff to go over to make you a better by the weekend. So, with that, we'll see you soon and good luck with your bets the rest of the night.